All right. Hi, everybody. I'm here with Alex Boon tonight, and I am really excited to learn a little bit more about the amazing nature journaling content that he is creating. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Thanks a lot, Marley. Good to be here.
Great. Well, let's just get started talking about art journaling and nature journaling. And maybe you can talk about how you combine those in your nature journal and sort of maybe help us understand the difference between the two or the similarity between art journaling and nature journaling.
Okay, I think that it kind of comes from being inspired by a lot of British artists, such as Edith Holden is pretty famous for the country Diary of an Edwardian Lady. And there's quite a few other artists that work in this style. So I kind of came to nature journaling less as a naturalist, but more as an artist wanting to explore using art to depict nature, essentially.
Cool. Let's see some of your pages to kind of get an idea of what you're talking about.
Sure. So this journal was from 2019 to 2021. Okay.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna spotlight you so people can see this a little bit better. Wow, yeah, that's really cool.
So I do lots of different types of page layouts. Let's try and find something different. There we go.
Whoa.
So it's kind of every page is a composition. So it's using kind of artistic elements to create something very beautiful.
Got it.
It's not to say that that's what all of my nature journals look like, because to be honest, a lot of the actual nature journaling I do looks more like that. So that's when I'm kind of outside creating the material, generating the material and the experiences to then turn into an artistic, more aesthetic nature journal.
Got it. So in maybe let me see if I got this right. So the art journaling aspect has a lot to do with sort of creating this aesthetic composition and making the pages look a certain way. And then the nature journaling for you is collecting some of that information in the field, and then you come back and do sort of the finished work later. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I can't create these pages without having those experiences I can't just go and get someone's photo, for example. That doesn't resonate for me at all. To just collect a load of maybe plants or animals that I might like the look of. I need to have an actual experience outside, and then that triggers something in me that makes me think, okay, now I want to go and make a composition about that experience.
Got it. Okay, so maybe you can help me understand some of these other terms then that are related and that I've seen when doing some research. So, people talk about scrapbooking, junk journaling, art journaling. How are these, what can you talk about these, or from your perspective, what are the differences between these different methodologies?
So if I show you my latest little journal, so this is more in that kind of creative journaling, junk journaling sort of style. Now, I don't really do junk journaling because I don't want to be gathering. Usually what it is people gather clippings, newspaper articles, things like that, and put them into a creative spread on a journal. And I want to do something like this, but actually using nature itself. So for example, in here, in fact, I'll show you the page that I just did today.
Wow.
So these are actual antique pressed flowers that came from a press. And I bought it in an antique shop, and it already had these flowers inside.
Whoa.
And so I don't know how long they've been in there. It's kind of amazing.
That is super cool.
And this is more of a collage type spread. So these are flowers that are growing in my garden like right now. But rather than just kind of using more sort of standard just drawing methods, I've used collage bits of cut out other pages. And all of this is hand stained using actual botanical inks that's actually made from plants as well.
Wow, that is really cool. Okay, so if you're cutting things out and gluing those into a journal or using sort of like multimedia, that would be sort of like scrapbooking or maybe junk journaling, perhaps.
Yeah, it's quite hard to put a label on it because
Okay.
I think it's lots of these different things that I've been inspired by, kind of all like combined into my way of doing things.
Great, great. Yeah, that's super interesting. I'm gonna just say hi real quick to the people that I see participating in the chat to show some love there. Hi Jean, hi Valerie, hi Ivea, hi Angie, hi Sarah. Thank you all for joining in. And we have a lot of comments here, and then a question. Let's see. Oh, and Valerie's here as well. She said she loves your YouTube videos. Here's a question from Jean. Maybe we could field this question before going on to some other things about this topic. But could you answer this question from Jean?
Yeah, sure. So at the moment, I've just got the two. Really, I've got my my what would I call it? Junk journal, creative journal, nature journal, for my best, aesthetic practice, and then I've got this one, which is my outdoor journal. So this is the one that I'm always looking outside. And at the moment, I'm only really working back into here. This is what I'm showing on my YouTube channel. So it's kind of like an ongoing project for the year. So yeah, I tend to only have the two. I've got another sketchbook as well for when I want to do like art practice as well.
Got it. Okay, cool. Great question, Jean. So I think we'll get into that a little bit later about sort of like your specific technique and maybe how you go back and forth between the two journals. I think that's a really important thing to talk about in the nature journaling community. But first, just kind of going back to this idea of these sort of different categories of journaling, which of these do you think is more well known? Like, do you think that more people know about art journaling than nature journaling or vice versa?
I think that the most well known is probably bullet journaling.
Okay.
I think pretty much everyone's heard of this. It's like if you go on YouTube and you search bullet journaling, you'll find people with like huge amounts of numbers of subscribers and views.
Yeah, why do you think that is?
I think it's because I don't really get it because it's not really my kind of thing, but people who want to plan their lives and make pretty to-do lists and things like that, which kind of it cuts across every single type of person or type of life that you could have. Whereas I think nature journaling and art journaling are a lot more specific, more to like nature lovers or artists or both. I think that's probably it.
Got it. Okay. And then why do you think nature journalers should incorporate aspects from some of these other journaling techniques, like specifically art journaling? Do you think there's useful things from art journaling that can be, incorporated into nature journaling? And speaking from your like personal experience, how has art journaling affected your nature journaling?
I think I'd actually say it's the other way around for me, because it feels more like nature journaling has affected my life as an artist. I think that it depends where you're coming from. So if you're someone who's like more on the scientific side and you want to document scientifically what you're doing, I think maybe you might not go too far into the artistic and aesthetic side. But if you're an artist, I think that you can go from art towards nature journaling, and it's kind of like finding that like middle ground. So the people that I want to appeal to, not so much nature journalists to be more artistic. I want to try and find arty people to be more nature. I think I'm probably more that way around.
All right, cool. I think we're on the same page with that one. And I just wanted to acknowledge, I can't read Arabic, but Ivea has translated, is using Google Translate to, translate some of these comments that someone has posted in Arabic. Thanks for joining the show. Maybe Ivea can help if you have any questions translating those. Thank you, Ivea. We have a Facebook user also who enjoys your creative journaling. I can't tell their name because it doesn't always show up here when they're watching on the Facebook page, but thanks for joining in. Okay, so then how about could you talk a little bit about the country diary style of nature journaling?
Yes. So, I mean, I don't know how much, do you know much about Edith Holden, about her?
Not really. I've heard the name and the title of the journals of the Edwardian
Yeah, I do
Edwardian
have the book.
lady.
I should have brought it in. It's because of like the style of the time. She went out and she did a lot of watercolors, and she kept all of these notes and this sort of beautiful handwritten text, with quotes and poetry in, and just like it's just so of its time.
Yeah.
But when I first started doing my very first nature journal in 2016, it was trying to emulate what she does.
Okay,
sort of
got it.
Paintings and then some text, and then gradually I kind of went away from that a little bit towards more of a diary.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Yeah, it sounds like Jean has seen Edith Holden's book, and then we also have Hashi Marie joining in here, and she loves your videos as well. And also Ivea translated the person who posted in Arabic. Their username is translated to "drawing with my annoying family," which I think is a really funny username. Thank you for joining in. Hopefully, that's a relatively accurate translation. I would love to see, speaking of, incorporating handwriting and stuff into a nature journal, I feel like Arabic has developed such a beautiful calligraphy, and that would be really cool to see nature journaling in Arabic. Okay, let's dive in now a little bit to your Patreon. So tell me about your Patreon. Oh, I also want to acknowledge that you have been a supporter of mine on Patreon, so that is really cool, and a bunch of people who are watching in the audience are also Patreon supporters. So let's hear, I've done shows with other nature journalers doing Patreon, and I think I just missed you that time, or you weren't on my radar yet. So let's catch up a little bit now and hear about what you're doing on your Patreon. It sounds like this year you started some really cool new stuff and like a commitment to daily journaling. So let's hear it from you. What are you doing on Patreon? And just tell us a little bit about that platform for you.
Yeah, sure. So I only started doing Patreon in August last year, and I wasn't entirely sure how I wanted to do it. So I started out with like a little nature journal club, and that was great. And there's some lovely people on there, but it wasn't really going to expand, I don't think. So I've only just this month changed it completely. And it's now a support for my YouTube channel. So essentially, patrons get extended content. I tend to, when I edit my videos, I want them quite short because they're daily, which means I leave out a lot of quite good content most of the time. So once or twice a week, that goes onto my Patreon so people can see a little bit more of what I'm doing. Also on there, I've got I'm starting paint along tutorials. Nice. So if you like my style of painting, working quite quickly, so I'll show you little landscapes like this.
Ooh, let me get you on solo layout here. Oh, nice.
So this landscape on this side, it only took me about half an hour to 40 minutes to do. So that's kind of the perfect thing for little tutorials to kind of get people painting quickly.
Cool.
Because that's something you can do outside as well. And then finally on there, I've got the Botanical Ink Club, because as I said, I'm working in handmade inks and I'm putting recipes up on my YouTube channel. Got a collaboration going with an absolutely wonderful ink maker, Louise at Bohemian Raspberry. And together we're putting recipes together, filming them, and trying to get people involved in creating their own ink from plants.
Wow.
But on my Patreon, if you would like a vial of the ink that I've made, so.
Whoa, that's super cool.
Ink.
So you send those out to, it seems like you have 3 tiers on your Patreon. Is that right?
Yeah, well, there's 5.
Okay.
Someone's basically like my tip jar. So it's for people to just see my journals and, check in. Then we've got the extended content tier, the paint along tutorials, and then on top of that is the botanical ink.
Cool. Wow, that's awesome. I would love to try some of that out. That's definitely an area that I haven't experimented with much, and I was thinking it would be really fun to do a whole panel discussion on the Nature Journal show with people who are doing, spending time like either making their own paper or making their own ink or talking about sustainable art supplies. I think there's another nature journaler on Patreon that just recently came onto my radar that I haven't had a chance to interview, but she makes she talks about the environmental sustainability of her art supplies. And I think that's something that people don't talk about very much. So tell us, who would you say is your like ideal Patreon member? What would your, like, if you could just paint a sort of imaginary picture of your ideal Patreon supporter, what would they be like?
It's really hard to answer. Most of the people who really love my my channel, if you really love my videos, essentially that I put out onto my YouTube, then it's going to be the place for you. I mean, it's quite hard to pin that down onto a type of person, but it's going to be a lot more of the same, expanded out. So if you like what I do, you like the sustainability, the quick watercolors, the aesthetic type stuff, and if that's what interests you and you like how I'm doing things, then I think you'll like the Patreon, essentially.
Got it. Okay. Tell us about the Daily Nature Journal project that you're doing.
Right. Yeah. So that is the little book that I showed you before, plus my outdoor journal. So you'll see these 2 books all the time on my channel. I'm trying to at least film something every day. I don't always get videos out every day because you know what it's like, editing and life and stuff gets in the way. But I try to do something in there every day and share that with you. So sometimes it's I go out. I live in quite a beautiful area of the UK, right by the coast. I've got national parks. I've got lovely stuff around me. I try and get out a couple of times a week with my journal and just show you what I'm doing, how the seasons are changing in my area. And then the other sort of 50% of the time I'm in the studio working up those ideas into my other journal and showing you the processes.
Got it. So you've committed to Nature Journal every single day for the whole year. Is that part of it as well?
It is. I mean, I kind of do anyway, and I've been doing that pretty much, except if I'm ill or away or something, probably for the last 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, but I kind of thought I'm really passionate about getting more people doing it and like sharing what I'm doing. So I thought I need to get on YouTube and just show people what I'm doing and just, try and get people interested that way.
That's great. Nature journaling every day is a very impressive commitment, and probably I think one of the most powerful things that anyone could do to improve their nature journaling and just deepen the practice. So, wow, that's really cool. We touched a little bit on your handmade inks. Do you have any other handmade materials that you're working with?
It's mostly the inks.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm sort of learning along with Louise is kind of essentially teaching me, and I'm filming my learning process with the making of the inks. But then it's the leaf and flower pressing as well, which I'm pretty interested in, and that's a lovely process. You go out, you gather your leaves, you arrange them into the press, and then you're leaving it for 2 or 3 weeks at least. And then, it's kind of a patience building process, I guess you could call it.
Yeah, that's so cool. I just started experimenting with that a teeny bit. Let me grab a journal that I just stuck some pressed flowers into. But yeah, I think I'm really curious about how this sometimes I squish bugs into my nature journal as well, mostly mosquitoes that I trap that are biting me. But like here's this is a white sage plant. It's a little bit three-dimensional, so I had to really squish it down because it's a pretty thick plant there.
Yeah.
It smells really good too. But yeah, I'm really curious to see. I love that you're doing that, and I feel like this is like one of those sort of new frontiers in nature journaling that I think people could be, incorporating this or some of these other like scrapbooking type techniques of like cutting out different types of paper, maybe like toned paper or black paper, sticking that in and working on that. So that's really cool. Let's go into a couple sort of more questions about your project here, and then we'll go into the lightning round, which I know people are always really excited about. So I think I read somewhere something about how what you started doing in 2019 was really influential. Like this project that you started in 2019 was a turning point. So could you describe that turning point or sort of give us a little bit of the story there?
Yeah, so I mean, I can show you the difference. This is my very, very first ever nature journal. So this was when we first moved to this part of the country in 2016. And it kind of looked like this a lot. So it was almost like a diary with paintings stuck in, essentially. And I was doing that for several years. And eventually I started getting bored of sticking paintings in. I ended up having a whole load of paintings that needed to be done, and I didn't have the energy or didn't want to do it. So that's when I started thinking about, using this. And the first page is less good, I guess, than my other pages. That way. There we go.
Wow.
So immediately
are those ladybug larvae down there in the corner?
That's right, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so I went into coloured pencil at that time in a really big way, using ink and coloured pencil and writing in a kind of almost like a nature writing diary keeping kind of style. And I think at that time, that's when I went from, oh, this is, a little hobby that I do occasionally, to actually, I really want to just do this. This is kind of my life. I just love it. So, within about a year of doing that journal, and then the pandemic hitting and my other job kind of like just had no work for quite a while. It gave me the freedom to pursue being an artist and a nature journaler. And yeah, it's kind of gone from there, really. So I really kind of say that creating this was kind of my turning point, like not just as an artist, but in life as well.
Wow, that's really cool. Do you have any of to get a sense for I think it was last week I did a show about using words in our nature journal, and I feel like a lot of times, maybe because on social media, visual stuff is way easier for people to like and see. But I think the words a lot of times are sort of not talked about enough, especially like on the Nature Journal Club Facebook page. Do you have any entries? You described a little bit of how the vibe is and everything. Do you have any entries right now that you think you could read us to give us kind of a sample there?
Yeah, let's see if I can find one. Sometimes in here it's a bit like, oh, I went to see my sister and we walked here, so I can try and find one that's a bit more interesting. Right, here's this one's fine. So they're like diary entries for the outdoors. So these ones are written when I come back. I think that's a big distinction from what I actually write sitting out under a tree outside.
Got it.
So this is the 10th of November. I took a day to myself to walk the undercliffs. The last time I was there was in the summer. The paths were muddy and strewn with lichen-laden twigs, yellowed and brown beech, oak and ash, and the vivid yellow of fallen ivy pollen and the red of holly berries. I wandered off the path to Humble Green for lunch, then retraced my steps. Found pink spindle, several different fungi. walked home, and then, since the light had not gone, I went to the wetlands to watch the starlings. A huge murmuration, at one point a bird sweeping low over the bench on which I lay, the flapping of so many small wings, a whoosh I'd never before heard, loud but soft at the same time.
Wow, cool. I can totally see the murmuration. That's awesome. Nice. Okay, cool. I'm gonna just check in on the comments over here. I think there was a flurry of comments. I see one question here maybe you could address is how do you protect pressed flowers in your journal?
Right, yeah. I actually created a cool technique to do this, and I don't know if I can find it in here. Right, here we go. So this is for 2018. There's a bunch of leaves.
Oh, wow.
So these are a bunch of leaves that have been in there quite happily since 2018, and I think they're still looking pretty good. What I do is I use EVA glue, which is a bookbinder glue. And you coat, so you carefully pick up your flower or leaf with tweezers, especially if it's been pressed, they're very fragile. Use a soft brush to paint the underside with the slightly watered down bookbinder glue. Turn it back on, press it down, and then I paint the glue over the top. And I usually give it like 2 or 3 coats of that slightly watered down glue, very carefully laid over the top. The good thing about that glue is because it's for bookbinding, it's really flexible. So it allows, once it's stuck, it allows the plant, if it's not too thick, to move with the paper.
Got it.
Yeah, so that works.
That's really cool. Maybe if anyone in the comments who is familiar with some of these products or I'm sure there's people here who have more experience with sort of scrapbooking techniques and stuff like that. Maybe if anyone knows about that glue could post something about it in the comments or other experiences with similar glues. Wow, cool. That is really awesome. So what would you say is, we're right about to get into the lightning round, but just a couple more questions here. What would your number 1 tip for nature journaling beginners be?
Well, I teach some in-person workshops to beginners. And I'd say my number 1 tip is to get yourself just a book. Like, this is just a plain sketchbook and a pencil. And that's all you need. You go out with that. So don't get all like tied up with like fancy art materials and trying to, because it's really easy to just like buy a load of stuff and then sit down and be overwhelmed with it all. It's just a pencil, and then you can sort of start to go, okay, do I want to write? Do I want to draw? And you can just kind of like go out and experience things and see what comes to you, but you're not overwhelmed by all this stuff.
Great. Wow. Okay, great. That's a very good tip. It looks like Turquoise Sky number 1 has posted some information about glues, EVA, and PVA. So thank you very much. That is awesome. I knew there was some heavy knowledge in the audience here. Okay, so are you ready? Oh, wait, I need to find my lightning round banner here. Are you ready for the lightning round?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, make your best lightning sound. Ooh, that's a good one. I think I'm gonna use that recording in some other videos. That was really great. Okay, so we'll start off with some sort of quick ones. So don't think about them too much, and a lot of them will be yes or no questions. Is coffee an essential art supply?
No, don't like coffee.
Okay. Can nature journaling go viral?
Yes, I guess. I think anything can go viral.
Are you organized or messy of an artist?
Oh, messy. My studio's just stuff everywhere.
Okay. Do you like nature journaling or making art more alone or with other people?
Oh, probably alone, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it's getting the zone.
Does your family understand your art?
Yeah, I think so. I don't really know.
Do you eat snacks while you're nature journaling?
Oh yeah, always.
Okay. Would you consider yourself a perfectionist?
Yes and no. Not outdoors, yes, inside.
Okay, good distinction. Would you rather nature journal plants or animals?
Plants, I think. Soft spot for plants.
Okay. Ink or graphite?
Oh, ink, absolutely. 100%.
Okay. Do you ever put art supplies in your mouth?
No, I don't think so. I don't
Okay.
think I've. Maybe when I'm thinking. Who knows?
Do you like nature journaling the big picture or the micro?
Probably the big, because I have this thing about landscapes, but then I like putting landscapes next to small things. I like that.
Oh, okay.
Side by
All right. Would you rather nature journal on the planet Mars or in the deep sea?
Probably in the sea. I don't think there is much Mars. I think in the sea there's a little bit more going on than at Mars.
All right. Do you nature journal fast or slow?
Fast outside, slow inside.
Hey, that's a good balance. Okay, show us the face that you make when someone walks up to you and says, "You are talented. I could never do that."
Yeah, just say it's a skill. It's a skill. Go and sit and do some drawings.
Great answer. Okay, now we've got the last couple longer form lightning round questions here. If you could nature journal with any historical figure, which historical figure would you want to nature journal with?
Oh, that's a cool question.
They don't have to be a nature journaler. Like if you just want to bring Karl Marx along for his perspective and get him into it, that would be fine too.
It probably would be Edith Holden. But I think John Tredescant, the gardener from the 1600s, I've been reading about him recently, and I'd love to read him. I think.
Wait, could you say the gardener's name again?
Tredescant. I think I pronounced it John Tredescant.
We'll come back here and type that in later so people can look that person up. But okay, cool, great one. If you could have a nature journaling superpower, what would it be?
Oh, I think that it would be to not need to sleep.
Oh.
So that I could get all my other stuff done and have more time outside in the daylight.
Okay, that's a new one. I've never gotten that answer to that one before. Okay, so
I'm described with being so busy all the time, and it's like I always have this long list of stuff I've got to get done. So if I just didn't have to sort of waste that time in bed, it would be amazing.
Got it. Yeah, that's a great one. If you were gonna tomorrow go through a fairy portal, and you could only bring 5 nature journaling supplies to fairyland, what 5 nature journaling supplies would you take with you?
I'll probably take like some ink pencils, and lots of sketchbooks and a pencil. So so pencil, ink pencils, sketchbook, and then like maybe 2 more sketchbooks, because it's paper that you're going to run out.
Okay.
Quicker.
All right, and then when you come back, 500 years will have passed, like in the normal world, and who knows what it'll be like then. Okay, last question for the lightning round. In the nature journaling Olympics, which events would you compete in?
Oh, wow. I don't know what the event would be. Fastest landscape.
Nice.
Most stuff written down in pencil in one spot.
Ooh, okay, great. Nice job in the lightning round. That was fun.
Thank you. That was really good. And such interesting questions.
Yay. I've been working on these lightning round questions for several years. So, all right. So let's talk about techniques a little bit, some practical stuff. Maybe you could just sort of walk us through a day of nature journaling for you and sort of how you build one of your pages, because you mentioned the word sort of composition, aesthetic composition before. And I think that's something that a lot of people think of when they see your pages. So maybe you could sort of just reverse engineer for us sort of what a day would look like and how you build that page.
Okay. So I can show you something like that. This is a good thing about doing this daily nature journal project, is I've got all of this stuff lined up. So there was a day that I went out and took my GoPro to the local reserve and fed the birds, and then I sat. I had the GoPro like on a post and the feed in front of it, and then the birds were coming down, and then I sat there and drew the birds because I was quite close to them. And this is like the kind of the really quick sketches. Did a bit of writing as well, and then came back, and I would then look to work those up into my journal, and those became these little sketches.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I'm not gonna, hold on, don't put that page away yet, because I'm really curious about the little, the sort of legend there on the side. What's going on? Can you tell us a little bit about these symbols?
You mean, oh, here we go, this side.
Yeah.
This is my weather for the month. So each month in here, I'm keeping weather observations. So I've got like your kind of basic weather symbols, and then these are the wind level, and then the little blocks down here, they're my energy levels, my kind of like
awesome
mood and fatigue levels, because I kind of suffer quite a bit in winter with like sort of mood problems and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was quite interested to see how that changed with whether the sun was out, and actually is like serious correlation.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I'm going to do that. Probably different layouts. I won't always have it in a list like this, but I'm going to be doing it throughout the entire year, and it's just a cool record, I think.
That is really cool. I think that needs to be, it reminds me of like a video game or something, but I think that idea of, I mean, I always think it's interesting to include stuff on our nature journal pages about ourselves and not assume this sort of false objectivity, but that idea of recording your energy or sort of mood level is such a cool concept. I think I'm gonna, if it's okay with you, I think I'm gonna have to try to start copying that in my metadata.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, cool. So you start off, in this case, you used your GoPro to get some close images of those birds, and you did some sketches there in the field. And was that on tracing paper, or what was it seemed like, what in that journal, what was that? There was a sort of crunchy sound.
Oh, this, yeah, that's the cover. It's got like
the cover, okay.
A cover thingy to protect it. I don't know why.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so the paper itself is just it's cotton paper, smooth cotton paper.
I see. And then you go back and you use the sketches and the images from the GoPro when you get home.
Yeah.
Okay, and is that pretty standard for your process?
Yeah, I try not to use other people's photos as much as I can, because it feels like I'm disengaging.
Yeah.
So it's like I'll use it if I have to. Like at the moment, I'm working on a bigger piece, and it's got a little bird in the bottom corner. And because my camera's not, it's just a GoPro, it hasn't got a zoom lens or anything.
Right.
I've got some grainy pictures of the bird, but I'm still working from that as much as I can. And then I'll go to some guidebooks to try and fill back the detail and everything.
Got it.
Yeah, I feel like it needs to come from a personal connection. Otherwise, I find it hard to summon the enthusiasm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I have a similar experience. Okay, that's really cool. So the other one I'm curious about process-wise is these sort of, I think you've called them composite images, and this is really what I think of when I think of your work, and like these ones where you have all these different plants and they're sort of all kind of going along the bottom, creating this cool sort of like halo almost around the words. How do you go about creating how did those pages get put together?
Okay, I'll see if I can find the right one to talk about that. There's one in particular that I was doing during the pandemic. I'll try and find it. Problem is, there it is. So here we go, for a composite.
All right, let me put you on the solo layout here for that. Wow, yeah, exactly. Tell us what's the sort of process there, because it's easy for me to just look at that and be like, wow, that's amazing. And I want to try to bring this down to sort of a process for people who might feel sort of intimidated when they see that final product?
So there's a bit of a story to this one. This was the end of March and beginning of April 2020. So that was actually, when the pandemic hit. And it was a quite warm early spring in the UK. It was, beautiful. And I was actually able to spend time sat in my garden among all these plants. So I've got a pretty wild garden. I manage it for wildlife. So I was actually sat there drawing these from life. So actually this one was a slightly different process than normal. What I'd normally do is that I'd have lots of my photos and my sketches, and I'll come back and I'll draw in pencil an approximate layout of how I want it all to fit together. This time I was sat with the plants and I kind of put some down on the page almost straight away, and then almost filled in the gaps around them with sort of green and grass and such. On the other side it starts on my garden on one side and it goes into the woodland on the other. During the pandemic, I spent quite a lot of time in the woods, and I took a lot of photos of new growth, new plants, and from those photos, I then incorporated them together into the page.
Got it.
I find it hard to explain how I decide. I kind of I try to layer things like they are in nature and then just kind of grow it out, I guess.
Okay. And so when you're working from the photos and the sketches, do you just have those lying out on your desk? And what are you using when you're looking at your photos? Are you looking at your photos on an iPad or a laptop or your phone?
Yeah, usually I have both. I've got my phone and iPad for different photos. Sometimes I'll print some of them out if I think I'll use them again. I don't like to print things out if it's just for like once. And then I usually have sketches. I find it quite important to actually at least have some basic line sketches as well. I think that's because it's hard to go straight into something that's going to look pleasing like cold. I think you need to kind of almost warm up to it and like know the plant or the bird or whatever a little bit better before you start trying to take it to that level of artisticness.
So it sounds like you lay out a lot of stuff around you as you're putting the composition together, and that reminds me a lot of sort of like a scrapbooking or a collage type process.
Yeah, it's kind of if I can't be doing this like sat in among the plants, then I need to kind of like recreate it. Like if they're plants from my garden or if they're very common, I'll gather some of them and just bring them back and have them in a vase, or I'll make pressings of them. I feel like I need to be near the subject.
Got it. Yeah, I have the same experience, but I don't know if I've sort of figured out the way to recreate that experience in the studio, that closeness in the studio, the way that you're describing. I'm gonna pop over here to the chat. There's a very rich conversation going on here that Alex, I recommend you checking out on the YouTube later. The chat stays available afterwards, but I think what you're mentioning right now and the way that I'm imagining your sort of process, laying these things out, and you described even printing things out, this could be sort of similar to what Elaine at the Craft Shed in the comments is talking about with her process, feeling sort of intimidated around drawing, but using sort of stamps and sort of scrapbook type techniques and collecting of plant material that can be put into the journal as a way to kind of work around that sort of I guess fear of drawing or lack of practice there. So in some ways, it sounds like the method that you're using to create your drawings is actually quite similar, and maybe there's some sort of bridge there. For what kind of recommendation would you give for someone like Elaine or some other artists that are still a little bit intimidated by drawing things from life, or feel like they, how do you get started when you don't have the practice and the skills and the confidence around the realistic drawings that you can do?
I think I think that this, my new book is quite a nice example, because what I did before even starting doing any drawings was essentially make pages look like this.
Okay, let me put you on the solo layout. So what's going on there? That's is that dyed?
It's botanical inks that have just been put haphazardly on the page. There's staining, just like getting some colors. I think this is what we can take from creative journaling and scrapbooking and things like that, is that you don't need to do really detailed drawings to get a good effect. So I'd say get yourself some nice watercolor paper or a nice watercolor sketchbook like this, and use color on the pages. Just splash out, just go for it with color, make things look pretty. Because I know, like, I've heard a lot, it's not about pretty things, but I think for some of us it sort of is, and we kind of want it to be. But you can make things aesthetic without having to do loads of detailed, beautiful drawings. You can, just go to town on some scrap paper with some inks. You can explore plants through making botanical inks and put that on paper and stick that in your sketchbook. You can press flowers, and you can make little jottings. You could even go and count the birds in your garden and do something cool with those observations. It's like trying to find ways to do things like a little bit more creatively without actually having to do a ton of drawings. I guess that's what we could take from it.
Great, cool. Yeah, thanks for that. Let me just share this comment here. This is interesting. I hadn't noticed this before. So this guy was doing, this is on John Muir Law's nature journaling walks. This guy was using, I should talk to that guy. Thanks for sharing that. A lot of really great conversation going on here in the comments. Great. Well, one other question I had about your technique is how do you keep your handwriting so neat? That's something I struggle with.
I don't know. I just wrote really slowly, and there are mistakes in there. So when I made mistakes, I went over it with like white pen and then wrote over the top. So just being as slow and careful as possible.
Okay.
But I think it also helps to just like to have the outdoor book where you can just like scroll away to your heart's content and then go, okay, now I'm going to condense this into, and be tidy with it.
Okay, cool. Great. All right, let's see. So some of my closing questions here. Oh, first of all, I posted it at the beginning in the comments, but let me just share your info again. If people want, for people who, it seems like a lot of people have seen your videos already, but I'm going to put this one up here so people can find your YouTube channel for more content, especially since you're posting so much on there right now. I'm going to put this up at the bottom of the screen, but I'll also post it in the comments so people can click over later and watch that. I do have some closing questions, but I think people will be able to click on that as a link, hopefully, or else they can copy and paste it. So that's really exciting. Definitely go check that out. And then here, I'll show your Patreon again. That one's easy enough to remember. And then let's go into some of these closing questions here is, what do you think the future of nature journaling is, Alex?
Well, for me, I kind of like, it comes back to what the whole purpose of it is. For me, is to try and reconnect people with the land and with nature before we just become completely severed. So I think that it's trying to find ways in to get people engaged. And, for any of us to share what we're doing and seeing if we can just kind of like spark a bit of enthusiasm with people. Because there's loads of people out there who love art. There's loads of people out there who love nature. But I think that nature journaling pulls you in and makes you so close to it. And I think it's as a population in general, we're kind of keeping it at a distance. Like people take their dog for a walk and it's still a bit over there. They're over here and it's over there, if you see what I mean. It's trying to find ways to draw people and mesh them into nature. I think that's got to be, how the way the world's going at the moment. So yeah.
Cool. Wow, thank you for that. I'm going to share this. I have a couple more closing questions, but I wanted to share that Elaine said that watching your videos every day helped her get started with nature journaling. So just some cool feedback there that your videos are having the sort of impact that you're talking about. So you said sort of something, maybe let's delve into this a teeny bit more. But you said, with the way that the world is going and stuff like that. So like maybe we could go into that a little bit about just sort of like, what are you referencing when you say that?
It feels like, I don't know if it's like that in the US, but in the UK, we're just, everything the government says is kind of essentially just greenwashing. It's kind of like, there's these big projects like the HS2 rail link, and they're just tearing down ancient woodlands. There's people that were trying to criminalize trespass. We're still shut out of the land, essentially. There's lots, we can only access like 8% of the country. So people are being kept separate from nature. And, climate change is happening, and I don't think we can afford to consider ourselves not part of nature anymore. And it seems so obvious to me, and I don't know how people can't see it. So I think that the more we get people looking and seeing these things happening, the more people are going to start to maybe feel it a little bit more, what's going on.
Great, yeah. Great. So you think that nature journaling has a role that it can play in this situation?
Yeah, I think it can. I think that it's a contemplative practice. Mm-hmm. It's like, I do yoga and I practice Buddhism as well. And I actually think that nature journaling is on the same level as these things. And maybe even more so if we're talking about getting people engaged and starting to care, because it's very easy for a plant to just be a plant or just be a weed. Once you've sat with that plant and written about it and researched it and drawn it and forged a connection with it, it's not just a plant or a weed anymore. It matters to you.
Absolutely. I think Ivea would definitely resonate with that statement, and connecting with a plant that way. Wow, that is really cool. And I almost feel like a little bit of goosebumps coming up my back when you say that nature journaling. And I'm imagining like a talk at the Wild Wonder Nature Journaling Conference or something about nature journaling as a spiritual practice. And I think that maybe it's something that a lot of people kind of hint at or, subtly, mention, but don't really like go into that so much. So I think you drew a pretty clear, a pretty clear line there, connecting nature journaling with a spiritual practice. So that is super cool. Is there anything else that we didn't talk about or that I didn't ask you that you think is really important that we should mention here?
No, I don't. I think we've covered quite a bit. I think I'd just like to say, based on what you just said about it being a spiritual practice. I think because I've been practicing, with meditation and with yoga. I practice Ashtanga yoga every day, except Saturdays. And I've found that the same sense of wholeness and connection from a yoga practice or a meditation retreat, I can also get after several hours of nature journaling. It is the same feeling. It's that same, just sort of connection to the world. And that was quite profound for me because I thought it was just an art thing. I didn't realize that. So I think that is something that can be talked about a lot more, definitely.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for bringing that up and for being on the show. I'm just looking over here at the comments and realizing that there's no way I can keep track of this rich conversation in the comments and the rich conversation with you. So I definitely recommend anyone who's getting here later or watching this in the recorded version, it is possible to click. There's a little thing that will say live chat. And as you watch the video, you can see the chat happening connected to the time it was during the video. So please definitely check that out. There's a lot of great stuff going in here. Angie, Elaine, Jean, Ivea, Valerie have been having an amazing conversation here. Aneta just joined in. Thank you so much. And if I'm missing anyone, I'm sure there's some other people. Marilynn joined in for a bit there. Thank you, everyone. Cindy for joining in on the chat. Is a really rich conversation. And hopefully in the future, maybe it sounds like some people want you to teach about nature journaling as a spiritual practice at Wild Wonder. So they might still be looking for people. I'm just imagining like some really cool retreat where people could be doing like yoga and meditation and then doing nature journaling later, going for walks, and just maybe even, how cool would it be to talk with someone who is like a teacher of different styles of meditation or yoga and see if they have any insight. Like maybe they could teach nature journaling educators about what they do, and then the nature journaling educators could teach those meditation teachers about nature journaling, and then we could see like how each one could inform the other. I mean, I think that would just be really awesome.
Amazing. Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Cool. Well, thank you so much again. And everyone be sure to check out Alex's Patreon and YouTube. I'll post them one more time here in the comments. It seems like a bunch of people just joined in here at the end too. Wild and Wobbly Inverts has a thing about trespassing and connection to the land. James Coleman also, maybe another person from the UK. A lot of the land where I live is posted, but the northern tier has state parks, lots of ruins. Thank you everybody for joining in. I'm going to post here one more time the YouTube channel so you all can check it out. Alex, thank you so much for taking the time today, and I hope to nature journal with you in real life in the field at some point in the future.
Oh, wouldn't that be great? Thank you so much, Molly. It's been really, really good. I've loved this chat. It's been brilliant.
I'm going to run outside and do some nature journaling inspired by this.
Oh, well, it's 10 o'clock at night in the UK, and I've been up since 6 for yoga, so I think I'm going to go to bed.
Sounds good. All right. Hopefully have some sweet nature journaling dreams. All right. Bye, everybody.